Most people will recognize MGMT for 3 singles. Time to Pretend,
I'm feeling rough, I'm feeling wrong in the time of my life.
Electric Feel,
Said, ooh, girl, it shook me like an electric eel.
and Kids.
Show yourself, take only what you need from it.
Is that bad? No, there are artists who wish their songs were played 500 million times on Spotify, or have people instantly recognize them when they are played. You couldn't have lived in 2008 without hearing one of these singles. They've appeared in countless movies, TV shows, video games, commercials, and more. They're the only tracks off their debut with dedicated Wikipedia pages. They're modern-day indie pop anthems that still define MGMT. It's been 10 years since the duo delivered their trinity of tracks into the world, and since then, MGMT have released 2 more albums and have yet to replicate the success of those initial 3 tracks. Again, there would have been nothing wrong with that. There are tons of artists who are primarily known for 1 or 2 massive hits, but never for a lack of trying. What if I told you MGMT didn't make another radio hit by choice? That, or the general public's music taste, is to blame. MGMT are Andrew Van Wijngaarden and Ben Goldwasser. The two met in 2001 and began producing electronic music in their freshman year of university. They bonded over a love of neo-psychedelia from the 1970s and 80s, bands like Chrome, Spacemen 3, and Spiritualized. The pair started creating loops of sounds and noise in their dorm rooms. They didn't start singing over their tracks until they started writing pop songs later on. The idea of pop music was a joke to these two. It's why they initially called themselves the Management.
We are the management!
They were in charge. Andrew and Ben would play small college parties wearing fur coats, drinking champagne, and improvising over the Ghostbusters theme for an hour. They teetered on performance art more than a band at times. And starting out as a joke, the two began writing the poppiest songs they could in order to sell out as quickly as possible. They ended up with tracks Kids and Time to Pretend, and those tracks became on-campus hits, and were eventually included in their 2005 EP, Time to Pretend. They signed with a small label to distribute the handful of tracks, and even toured them, opening for Of Montreal. When Andrew and Ben returned from their tour, the band was over. The two were gonna go their separate ways, and one was even considering joining Of Montreal as their new guitarist. But those plans were quickly foiled when their EP caught the attention of Columbia Records, who offered them a record deal. The boys gave it some thought. They were initially having fun with their music and disliked the idea of having a corporation turn them into a product. Columbia set them up with legendary record producer David Fridman to record their studio debut, Oracular Spectacular.
Show yourself, take only what you need from it.
It received universal acclaim. They were nominated for 2 Grammys. It was NME's top album of the year. Rolling Stone named it the 18th best album of the decade, the 494th best album of all time, and it sold over 2 million copies, still seeing steady sales today. Andrew and Ben's joke of selling out kind of became a reality. It was the freshest sound on radio, the new millennial soundtrack with relatable themes of youth, rebellion, and transitioning into adulthood. But MGMT had urged Columbia to not feature Kids on their debut. They had been playing it since college. They were over that song. But the label knew it had a chance to be a huge album seller. Time to Pretend was also given a rework for MGMT's debut. The tempo was raised to match that of ABBA's Dancing Queen. Along with Electric Feel, these 3 singles would overshadow the rest of the album. Of course, these tracks would act as an introduction to the band, and there would be fans who would go on to enjoy the full album. But remember, these initial tracks were made to mock modern-day pop music. They weren't the best representation of what the band wanted to be known for, regardless of how popular they were or how much success they brought to the group. MGMT vowed to not make another radio-friendly hit. They wanted to flex their creativity and move themselves away from the sound they had been categorized into and dive into creating unconventional pop music, reminiscent of those albums they initially bonded over in their dorm room. They even tapped Pete Kember of Spacemen 3 to produce the album. It was a bold move, and Columbia let them go for it. The end product was their Sophomore. Congratulations.
The mirror balls throwing motors, we can't
Andrew and Ben had teased the track Flash Delirium before release, and fans were confused. The duo would explain that this new album would be a large departure from their sound, that it was an artistic statement and the most personal and honest work they had made to date. The title track speaks to their thinking. The boys were being congratulated on the success of their first album, or as they felt, for only 3 singles. They had attained the most success from what they mocked, mainstream pop music, and were being expected by fans and suits to produce more of the same. They began feeling like they had little control in their decisions and that everything was being done for them. So instead of just coasting through their music career, they wanted to challenge themselves. MGMT didn't need or necessarily want a big selling album. They wanted recognition, credibility, and to develop their own sound. But Columbia found it difficult to market the album to those same audiences that ate up tracks like Kids and Time to Pretend. There was no single on the album for mass audiences to grab onto, but that's exactly what Andrew and Ben wanted, for people to listen to the full album rather than just the singles. Many fans jumped ship, while others loved the new direction, some even liking this new album more than their debut. And you know what? Congratulations is a better album than Oracular Spectacular. Yeah, there's no radio anthems on the album, but Congratulations is a well thought out and polished psychedelic pop record. Where their debut relied heavily on the instant catchiness of its hooks, Congratulations invites you to listen a little closer and break away from the basic song structure and discover the melodies. It can feel overwhelming on first listen, but it wouldn't be the first album I've heard that's needed repeated listens to fully appreciate. And aside from their big 3 singles, Congratulations is just an evolution of everything else that was on Oracular Spectacular. Either way, Congratulations left audiences and critics polarized and puzzled. The album failed to reach the success and sales of their debut, and while touring this new album, the band felt they had to defend their new direction. Fans were showing up for the big 3 having not even heard Congratulations. Those fans weren't connecting with these new songs, and I imagine that could be very disheartening for an artist while on stage. So what would they do next? Reach for what made Oracular Spectacular a commercial success? Continue down the unconventional route paved by Congratulations? Or compromise and deliver the best from both efforts? They opted to get more experimental with their self-titled MGMT.
Introspection. What am I really like inside? Introspection.
I respect the band's choice to stick to their guns and release the music they wanted to make, not trying to appease a label or fans. And kudos to Columbia for continuing to give them so much creative freedom, considering the sales and reception of Congratulations. If you stuck with MGMT after Oracular Spectacular, you'll find tracks like Alien Days, Introspection, and maybe 1 or 2 others enjoyable, but a lot of the tracks feature an awkward mismatch of sounds that rarely offer any interesting moments or reasons to return. Oracular Spectacular producer David Fridman came back to produce for the boys, and they head even further down the psychedelic rabbit hole. If you like it, keep liking it. MGMT thanks you for it. They're not making music for everyone. They said at this point in their careers they couldn't write a pop song. They're quoted with saying, "If we tried, we'd either get bummed out or we'd change it enough until it was something that we actually liked." Now, to me that almost sounds like they purposely tried to avoid writing a pop song. If it was between finishing a track or altering it until you liked it, why not tinker with a pop song until you liked it? They claim they didn't want to feel horrible by just cashing in on the success and sound of their first record. They didn't want to make a dishonest album, be a one-hit wonder, or be forgotten about without having said something meaningful. But they're almost trying to be remembered for only 3 songs. You're gonna be one-hit or 3-hit wonders if you don't make new hits to replace the ones of the past. And there's not going to be many people left to hear your meaningful messages if you keep purposely alienating your audiences with more obscure arrangements with each release. I get that MGMT want to shed their past personas and develop their sound, but I think they were already doing a fantastic job in the direction they were taking Congratulations. This new album just filtered their audience even further. Critics panned it and even began proclaiming Congratulations to have been a fluke. MGMT decided to take a break. And I think for the better. They needed to step away and reconsider their next steps. Ben headed to LA with his fiancée, and Andrew to a beach house in Queens. By 2015, the pair were crafting songs via email. They started revisiting the basic structures of songwriting and weren't trying to stray away from their pop influences. And the new singles we've been getting for their upcoming album sees them producing dark synth pop, and they're being deemed radio friendly. It sounds like MGMT are going down the middle ground of pushing their sound, but within the limits of conventional pop music. The label is excited for this new release, fans old and new are excited for this album, and damn does it feel good to be excited for an MGMT release again. I think any future MGMT album will always be measured against their first two albums and those notorious trio of singles. And now, after two unconventional albums, their fan base is either going to hate heading back into a pop-heavy direction or continue supporting wherever MGMT takes them. Here's hoping MGMT's forthcoming album ends their little dark age. Thanks for watching, ladies and gents. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like rating, subscribe to learn more about the music you love, and as always, thank you to my patrons. You continue to motivate me and help in freeing up my schedule to make more videos like these. If you want to be a part of the credits, decide which artists I cover next, or get a Middle 8 beanie, head over to Patreon and grab one before they're gone. Link is in the description below, and tell me, are you excited for MGMT's upcoming album? Let me know in the comments below, and keep listening.